This is the #1 mistake new graders make when they are trying to grade cards for the first time. I get the question a lot. People ask me, Tyler, how do you know what cards to grade? Well, part of that answer, it's a very complicated answer, but part of that answer is I know what cards not to grade. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach a lesson on the life cycle of grading a specific card. So let's go ahead and draw out this on a whiteboard. So let's say we have a y-axis. And on this y-axis, this is card supply. Think of card supply as whenever Topps, whenever Pupini, whenever all these companies make cards, there is a finite amount of supply, right? And then we have our x-axis, which is time. So time, as time goes on, so many cards that are gradable that is left, right? So this is going to be our imaginary line, and this is going to be max supply. So think something like a Wander Franco Topps rookie. Just thinking of that because apparently there's 1 million or 2 million of those cards made, right? Well, only so many of those cards are gradable. And the theory is, and it's not really a theory, it's proof, over time, there's only so many of those cards left that are gradable. Many of them get graded very early on, and then as time goes on, it really trails off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw what the gem mint rate looks like for any given card over time. And this is the exact same curve that applies to every single card. Now, it may look a little bit different in terms of the time scale, but we're going to walk through that. So as time goes on, we're going to start drawing a line on here that really represents the number of PSA 10s. So as time goes on, the number of PSA 10s increase. And they increase, and they increase, and they increase, and they increase. And eventually it kind of curves a little bit, and then it starts to level off, right? It starts leveling and leveling and leveling and leveling. So what have we drawn here? This is kind of a parabolic curve, but if anyone here has taken biochemistry, what you're also going to notice is this curve looks very, very similar to a curve called the Michaelis-Menten equation. I don't even know how to spell that. But for any biochemistry nerds out there, this is the exact same curve, the exact same equation that goes into it. So what this is describing is, over time, especially in the beginning of a card's life cycle, let's say that Topps just released a product or Bowman Chrome just came out, as cards are getting graded, they're getting graded at a very linear gem mint rate. So the straighter this curve is in the beginning, it is a very linear process. But over time, the supply starts to dry up. The supply of raw gradable cards dries up, and the number of gem mint cards in the population reports begins to level off and flatten. Now, there is a defined max supply of cards available. So for a Bowman Chrome autograph base card, let's say there's only 2,000 base cards autographed, there's only 50 gold refractors autographed, there's only 500 refractors autographed. We know that there is a max supply. Yeah, Topps and Pupini could be backdooring stuff, and they do that all the time. But in theory, there is a max supply of them out there. There's also, at the time that the cards are produced, a theoretical max number of cards that can achieve a PSA 10. Now, yes, there's greater volatility. Yes, there's the trimming, and there's the Kurtz card doo-doo duck butter care card crap. We get all that. But for the most part, when cards are made, there's a finite supply, and there's a finite number of gem mint cards available. Keep it simple. And as we go throughout time, we eventually hit a point where the number of cards that have been graded PSA 10 at some time point in the future, that is going to be very, very close to the theoretical maximum number of PSA 10s that are out there. Now, why is this important? This is important because this is why you don't see any 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan PSA 10s anymore. They're not being graded at this rate. So, oftentimes somebody will come to me and say, hey Tyler, this card, this older, call it a LeBron James rookie card or an Albert Pujols rookie card from 2001 or a Derek Jeter rookie card from 1993. A card A has a gem rate of, say, 50%. And they think that if they go and buy 10 of these cards, they think that 50% of them are going to grade gem mint. So if they buy 10 of them and it has a 50% gem rate, that card is going to have 5 gem mints by the time they get them graded with PSA. That is 100% false. The reason why is because in the beginning, there is an abundant supply of gradable cards out there on the market. And over time, the number of gradable cards diminishes because most of them are already in PSA 10 slabs. This, by the time we end up having an inflection point right around in here, now the saying raw for a reason kicks in. It's raw for a reason, baby. So if we look at some different cards out there and where they may land on some of these curves, we can really identify some practical examples. So what are some cards that are down here? These are cards that you would ideally want to grade. So down here we have pack fresh cards. Cards that are brand new. They've just been released. They're 2024 releases. They're pack fresh. Okay? That's not the only type of cards that are down here though. There's also cards of unknown players. Think unknown players as unknown speculated players, unknown collected players, players that, you know, whenever the cards came out, nobody cared about them, right? But then they did something important. They may have went on a torrid pace and now everybody wants their cards. Well, when the cards first came out, it wasn't worth grading them, right? So now, all of a sudden that they have increase in demand, people now want to grade them. So these can be older cards, but they're relatively unknown. And then they begin going along that same journey, right? So the main two areas where you want to grade down here, pack fresh cards, unknown players. Not just unknown players, unknown cards. So oftentimes you'll see on a lot of my PSA reveals, I'm grading cards of the GOATs, superstar players, right? Players who have cards that are not really speculated. So the odds of you finding a very high-end insert of a Michael Jordan, of a Kobe Bryant, of LeBron James, of a Tom Brady, the odds of you finding that and having that card be gradable, no baby. Those cards are way up here, and we're going to talk about those. But those players do have cards that are less speculated because 20 years ago, those cards were nothing. They were honestly nothing. So let's talk about some recent examples of some of these. So cards that used to be in this area that are no longer, but have traveled up the life cycle. So things like a 96 Topps Kobe. So people don't really realize this card was nothing special whenever it came out. It was a $3 card. It was a $3 card, $5 card for years. It wasn't until COVID that all the other good stuff got gobbled up that these cards were gradable, and now this card is sitting up here, right? So there's still some out there that are probably gradable, but now it's up here. So that's an example of something that has changed over time. Now let's look at some more examples of cards that are up here. So and once you hit this territory, this to me is basically a dead card. There's nothing about these cards that are gradable. Now, you still might find a PSA 10 out there in the wild because for anybody who knows this, biochemistry equation, the Michaelis-Menten curve, this right here is called Vmax. So Vmax is essentially a term that says, and it's describing an enzyme substrate reaction, but this curve never really hits Vmax. And in the context of cards and grading, you never really end up achieving and grading every single card as a PSA 10 for any given card. Now, some of them, yes, you might have. Like a 52 Mickey Mantle, we probably hit Vmax. Old Babe Ruth cards, we probably hit Vmax. But even 86 Fleer MJ, there's likely a couple more PSA 10s out there, whether they're BGS 9.5 crossovers. I doubt they're out there in the wild, but there's some in unopened wax. So unopened wax is going to have a lot of these cards that are in there. But for the most part, a lot of those cards are very near their PSA 10 cap, right? But there's other cards that are falling into this bucket that I like to call dead cards. I'm not out there actively pursuing an 86 Fleer MJ card. I'm not out there actively pursuing a 52 Mickey Mantle. The odds of me getting a PSA 10, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So there's other cards that people attempt to grade that fall into this bucket where they're essentially dead. So to me, I would say one of the first ones that comes to mind, because a lot of these got graded during the pandemic, 2013 Prism Giannis. All right, so this was a very easy card to grade, by the way. The gem rates were very, very high. Gem rates have cratered over time because most people look at the gem rate, they see the high gem rate, and they think that their card is magically going to get a PSA 10. Well, they fail to realize they're way up here on this curve. They're not down here anymore. So this card has a very low gem rate since the beginning of, let's say, 2021, 2022. There's not that many PSA 10s out there. There's some other ones. Basically, any LeBron rookie. People have been trying to grade LeBron James, the King. They've been trying to grade King rookies for literally over 20 years. So if you think in your mind that you're going to actually find raw LeBron James rookie cards out there in the wild that are packed fresh and PSA 10 ready, you're fooling yourself. There are some PSA 10s that are great, or PSA 10 candidates are gradable in wax. So yeah, if somebody opened a box and they pulled the LeBron rookie, yeah, it might have a chance at being a PSA 10. As it might have a really good chance. But grading is not new. People were grading LeBron James cards 2 decades ago. They were grading them whenever they came out. So this is not a new novel concept of grading rare cards that have a very high expected value in a PSA 10. So LeBron rookies, dead. We're getting to the point where Steph Curry rookies are dead. Steph Curry rookies. Again, a lot of these cards have been graded. He is now one of the modern day GOAT level players. So of course everybody wants his items. Tom Brady rookies. And by extension, not just rookies, but you could also say refractors. Any of his refractors, any of his inserts, these cards are all dead. We're getting to the point where it's base cards. So unless you're finding these from a dealer who had these locked away and they just want to sell everything, it's been in their attic, trying to find these cards raw online, it's dead. These are all dead cards. It's getting to the point, because PSA is grading, they graded 1.7 million cards in March. It's getting to the point, if you don't have a card that is relatively new out of a fresh release, it is multiple years old, nearly every single card that you find on eBay is going to be sitting up here. So that begs the question, Tyler, why is it that you buy 99.9% of your cards and you're still finding cards that are down here? Well, it's because I live on eBay. I live on eBay to weed out all of the sellers, all of the junk, all of the listings where I can very quickly identify that it's a card that is likely living up here. But I have a very extensive filtering criteria to get cards that are down in this area, where I'm very confident that the card still has gem mint, theoretical gem mint room to grow. But in addition to that, it's likely from a seller who hasn't graded the cards. So there's a lot of cards. Let's go back up here. So vintage cards. Basically, vintage cards are all essentially dead if you want to find gem mints. You can still find maybe high grade, but vintage cards. On-card autos of GOATs. MJ's, you're not going to find any autographs of him that are basically gem mint. LeBron, Steph Curry, all these people, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to find any of that stuff anymore. So what happens is because people don't really understand this curve, they think that the only way to really get gem mint cards is to cheat. So what they're going to do is use a wax. They're going to use McGuire's. They're going to use Kurt's Card Care. And what they're going to do is they're going to trim their cards, and they're going to raise this VMAX artificially above what nature intended the VMAX to be, and they're going to bump it up here. So they're going to try to wax their cards and get up there. And that's cheating. I mean, all you got to do is just use your brain. Like, I get it. People are upset with surface scratches and all that. I get they're upset with, buying crap from Topps and Pupini. Well, you are the dummies who gave them your money to begin with. So if you know that the product is crap, why are you all continuously throwing money at it? That's something I'll never really understand. Haven't given them a dime in 7-8 years. So again, just don't cheat. Just think better. This is the curve that you should understand. This is the life cycle. And whenever PSA is grading 1.7 million cards, there's a lot of cards that are getting sucked up where just about everything raw on the market is up here. This is where most cards live. So if you're not really good at this, this is a game that you shouldn't do. You should not be involved in it. This is not a newbie game because most people don't understand most card is up here. They think that, oh, this card is raw, this is the gem rate, and this is what the PSA 10 sells for, thus I can calculate an EV that is going to allow for me to grade in a profitable manner, and it's going to be a positive ROI. No. You have to have very in-depth knowledge of sports, players, sets, gradability of sets, and then the life cycle of where the card currently is at on this life cycle. So, just to summarize everything, cards that are down here in this first phase, they're being graded at a very linear gem rate. And what that means is as time goes on, 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, 2 years, whatever, as time goes on, the gem rate, as this remains linear, gem rate is consistent. As time goes on and we begin to hit a curve here, and there actually is a term for this, especially once we get right around here. It's about half of Vmax. This is called Km. It's kind of a rate constant. Each card is going to have a different rate constant. Again, it's a biochemical term from biochemistry. This is 1/2 of Vmax. Once we get there, gem rate decreases once we get above Km. So Km at some time point, let's call it, I don't know, this is just an example. Let's call this 6 months post-release. After 6 months, you start seeing the gem rate decrease. And then the gem rate really begins to crater where each subsequent attempt to grade a card has a substantially lower gem rate compared to this beginning part of the curve, right? Because it's very hard to squeeze out another 1, 2, 3 PSA 10s. You may have to send in 10, 20, 30 cards to get a PSA 10. And at that point, it's essentially a dead card in terms of trying to grade it. So hopefully this helps clarify one of the biggest mistakes that I see people who are jumping into the grading game. They just don't understand this whatsoever. They don't understand. They say, oh, this is a gem rate over here. That means that every card that I buy, that's going to be the gem rate going into perpetuity. They have no conceptual understanding that gem rates fluctuate over time. The gem rate changes over time. And it's because all of the gradable cards get gobbled up in the beginning whenever the card is released and whenever there is an immense demand for that card in the beginning, and then it trails off over time, right? So, again, if you want to avoid being a newbie, pay attention to this, follow this, and again, do your research. Don't listen to all these people out there who, I don't know, are giving you really bad advice. Okay, bye.